Hi, friends. Welcome back. So, I have a special guest on today. Jamie Berman, who is my guest, is a master's certified coach with a background in spiritual psychology, specializing in manifestation and the energetics of money. She has coached thousands of clients, helping them change the beliefs, habits, and behaviors that keep them from making the kind of money they truly deserve in their business. Jamie's clients stop under earning and go on to make six figures and beyond without overworking or hustling. She teaches that money isn't something that happens to us, but something that we have the power to create through our mindset and contribution. Jamie lives in Los Angeles and Maui with her husband and little dog, Millie. And with that, I would like to welcome Jamie.
I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to be here too. And if my regular listeners haven't figured out like the common denominators of the Los Angeles Maui connection and the little dog that we both have, because we both have little white dogs, there is an actually bigger connection between Jamie and I. Well, Jamie and I are both coaches, and we actually have a lot of friends in common and have gone on retreats together. And obviously, we both share homes in Los Angeles and Maui. But there is a wonderful story about how we first met. So, should I tell it or should you?
I think we both tell
Okay,
it. Maybe
love it.
I'll start and then
Yeah,
you can come in with the second part.
love
So,
it.
yes. So, this is what's wild. I am right now sitting in Jackie's old office in Los Angeles in her old room, which how that happened and how we met. So, my husband and I, this was 8 years ago now in April, we were looking for a house for the longest time. I think it was a year and a half that we were looking at houses, needed a home that had enough space for my husband, who is a musician, who has a recording studio, which isn't like the easiest thing to find. You need a big space for that. So we were looking, we put two offers down on different houses. Both of them fell through. And then we happened to see Jackie's home. And we were like, let's go see it. And we didn't know Jackie at the time at all. Like we were total strangers, but we came to see the house and our real estate agent or one of our, I don't know what happened, but the timing was wrong. We were supposed to come later or something like that. There was miscommunication. And so we show up and Kurt, your husband, answers the door and we're like, oh, I'm so sorry. And like, they were like, sorry, I thought it was a different time. The realtors weren't there. So he's like, it's okay. It's totally cool. We'll give you a tour. So he shows us around. We were like, oh my God, this house has amazing energy. Kurt was so sweet. And it was just what we envisioned. Like I had been manifesting this house. This was the one. Like I wanted it to be bright, lots of natural light coming through. It had this space for the studio, had the beautiful view that we loved, had the pool, like everything I envisioned this house had. We loved the neighborhood. And then as the process was going, of course, we buy the house. And as we're going through inspections and all that fun stuff, we met, right? That's when we met,
Yes,
Jackie,
yes,
wasn't it?
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And yeah, just started connecting. I remember meeting Blaze too through this whole process of like, we kept having to come back to the house for the inspections and different things that you do when you're buying a house. And I fell in love with Jackie's dog, Blaze. It's so cute. And I was like, Josh, we need to manifest a dog like this. This is what I want.
And now you have Millie who looks just
No,
like Blaze.
exactly. He was totally my inspiration for Millie, 100%. Because I'd never thought about getting a little fluffy dog before.
Yeah.
And he would always come sit on my lap, and it was just the cutest thing in the world. So the reason Millie is here is thanks to Blaze and that whole thing. And then as we met, yeah, I think we were just talking because you were still an executive.
I was still
And
an executive and I was
yep,
actually transitioning to producing for the 2 years that I was a producer.
right.
And I was moving back to Maui because I had
Yes.
been back and forth, back and forth. I had not decided on coaching yet, although it was something that I had talked about like a decade before that
Yeah.
someday I would do this. And I just sort of put it on the back burner.
Yeah.
Our mutual friend or neighbor was visiting me in Maui, and she had said, oh, I talked to Jamie. And I said, Jamie. And she said, yeah, the woman who bought your house. And I was like, oh, and she said she's a coach. And at that time, I had just started my coaching
Yep.
certification. And that's when I contacted you. And I'm like, I'm in coaching certification. You're like, how can I help you? And
Yep.
we became friends through that. And then it turns out we have now like a million friends in common. It's
Totally.
so weird. And then we became friends, and then you bought your home on Maui, and
I
so
know.
now I see you here or I see you there, and it's
It's
just
so
amazing.
fun. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I know, it's wild, and I actually remember Kurt saying when we came, he was like, "Oh, yeah, we're moving to Maui," and I said, "That's where we're moving next." I was like, "We're gonna live in this house, and then we're gonna move to Maui," which wild. So many synchronicities within that.
Yes, 100%. And we also bought that house as newlyweds.
Yeah,
So I think that like spoke to us and it was incredible serendipity. So
yeah,
anyway, that's the origin story of how I met
yep,
Jamie. And then we have been friends ever since and obviously share the common love of coaching, but we do a very different style of coaching. The core work is the same
mhm,
mindset work and energetic work and all
totally,
the things. But you are very specifically a manifestation coach. And so I
yep.
would love you to describe that for my audience and talk about really what that means.
Yeah. So manifestation is something that I've kind of was secretly into for a lot of my life. I mean, I feel like it was just something that spoke to me from a young age. Even at 11 years old, I used to watch Oprah with my mom. My mom used to clean houses, and I would go like on days that I was sick, and she'd always have Oprah on, and I would see like Wayne Dyer and all these people, Esther Hicks, and all of that, and I was just intrigued by it at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember even at like 11 years old picking up a book that was one of my grandma's. It was sitting around her house and it was on intuition. And I read it from cover to cover and it just spoke to me. So
Mm.
I was really into it. And especially after college, I graduated in 2009, which was like the worst time ever to graduate because it was during the crash and everything. And
Mm.
people were like, there's no jobs. So I was like,
Mm.
okay. So I moved back home, was living in my parents' basement, not ideal. I was working at Neiman Marcus, absolutely hated it because I was the youngest person there. The women that worked there, it was in the cosmetics department. They were, had been there for years, had their clientele. It's 100% commission. So talk about like an environment that's kind of sharky. Like they did
Yeah.
not want me talking to anyone. They would be so mean to me if I did. So it's just like something's got to change. This is
Mm.
horrible. So I remember every night I would come home. I'm sleeping in this room in my parents' basement. Like this is not what I pictured after college. But I just kept reading manifestation books and started actually like doing the practices that came along with it and decided I wanted to manifest living in Los Angeles. And so I just started
Wow.
like picturing it, writing it down, pictured the vision of it, which made like no sense because I was making 100% commission, which meant I was making barely anything because these ladies would not let me sell anything. So
Wow.
I was making very little money, but I saved all of it. And I was like, I'm going to move out to LA. Ended up doing it. And I think what blew my mind was 1 year from that time, I had had this vision that seemed so out of reach. But 1 year from then, I had this insight where I was like, oh my gosh, wait, this is the vision. All of these wild synchronicities just kept happening. Of course, I had to take the courageous action, take the leap of after saving $6,000 in a year, that was the money that I had. And I had my car and I drove out to LA. And yeah, it was just wild. This girl that I knew in college was like, hey, we have a place. It's a lot of roommates, but it's $500 a month. You can come live here. It was in the hills of Los Feliz, like right under the observatory.
Wow.
Beautiful, beautiful location.
Yeah.
And it had that exact view that I envisioned. And
Yeah.
also, little by little, all of the roommates kept moving out, leaving, getting in relationships. So I ended up having this house to myself for like a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's when I was like, wait, manifestation is real. This is wild. How is
Yeah.
this happening to me? And I just feel like I leaned into it all through my 20s because it was challenging. I didn't have my parents' support and I was living out in LA, basically just trying to start my life, trying to become a makeup artist and manifested an amazing career doing that. Of course, I always say manifestation isn't just envisioning, it's also having the courage to take the action towards the vision and taking the
Yeah.
leaps of faith.
Yeah.
But I really created this incredible life that was what I just envisioned. And so that's how I initially got into it. But I didn't start coaching on it at first because even when we met, I was doing coaching. It was I wanted to pick kind of something that was safe, and I thought manifestation was a little too woo-woo. I was like, "I don't
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
get
Yeah. We'll
it." I
talk
was like,
about that. Yeah.
right. So I was like, "That's okay. I'll do that secretly in my life, but I'm gonna coach on weight loss for women with PCOS." And so
Right.
that's what I did for the first year and a half, and I really created a successful business. I love coaching at its core. I'm
Yes.
obsessed, right? And so
Yes.
that part was amazing, but it just felt like I was leaving this huge part of my life out of it,
Yeah.
and it didn't feel fully aligned. It wasn't what I wanted to be talking about.
Right.
And I realized like so much of the business that I created was through these manifestation practices and leaning into universal principles and all of this, that I had also studied spiritual psychology really just for myself. But I brought
Mhm.
all of that work into my business. And that's how it was growing. And people were asking me, "How are you doing this?" And I'm like, "Well, this is actually what I'm doing here." But like, you know what I mean? So like finally I realized like I just was so unhappy in my niche doing PCOS coaching, and I felt like it wasn't me. So it was a whole process to come out as a manifestation coach and as a money coach. But once I felt like I was just fully authentically me, my business grew even more with
Yeah.
just a lot more ease.
Yeah.
And now it just feels like home. It's like what I love teaching. And
Yes.
it's fun because my clients get amazing results too. And they love learning this stuff.
Of course. So
Right?
let's go back a bit because that's
Yep.
such a great jumping off point
Yeah.
that manifestation is not just a wish. It's not like, "Oh, I'd
Totally.
like to be a millionaire," or,
Yeah.
"Oh, I would like to have a house in the South of France." Like,
Yeah.
that's lovely, and
Yeah. That's step one. I'm like, that's step one of many steps.
yeah. So talk about the difference between laying on your sofa
Yeah.
and imagining that you're rich and that you have all
Yeah.
these, beachside homes and all
Totally.
the things.
Totally. And I think that's the biggest misconception whenever it comes to manifestation. And I think much of it comes from a lot of people watched the documentary or read the book The Secret, which is
Yes.
wonderful. But the
Yes.
only piece of manifestation that that book and that documentary teaches is like law of attraction. So they only teach you what I call step one of manifestation, which is deciding what you want, like deciding for a bigger possibility for yourself. Step one is
Yes.
kind of claiming it, but there's so much more that goes into it, which
Mhm.
is, there's also a law of action, right? Which is taking leaps of faith, like really listening to your intuition and acting on what comes up and
Mhm.
not getting scared of it, right? So you have to take leaps of faith and actually go after it.
Yes.
So yeah, there's so much more to it than just that, but I think the main misconception is that you do just sit on your couch, you're just supposed to visualize it. I'm like, "No, the reason you visualize it is because that vision, if it is actually in alignment for you, and if you actually feel lit up by that vision, you're going to come out of that vision and get super inspired to take action towards it. That's really the purpose of going to these visuals and seeing it, because it's going to spark something within you because you've seen a new reality for
Yeah.
yourself. So for me, whenever I start seeing it, it's like I want to start acting towards it. I want to
Yeah.
start, and a lot of it, you have to learn skills a lot of times, right? Like in
Yes.
business,
Yes.
it's not like you just
Yes.
envision the business that you want. It's like, no, I did that. But then I'm like, ooh, who is my first goal was, because I've had to do a lot of work around money personally. I had set like $100,000 money goal in my business. And the way that I did it was I would say, who is the version of me who makes $100,000 in business? And like,
Mhm.
how do I need to fill in those gaps? What do
Yeah.
I need to learn? Who do I need to become? How do I need to think? What
Yeah.
new habits do I need to create? What habits do I need to let go of?
Yeah.
Having that vision helps me see, ooh, who is that person? And like,
Yeah.
how can I align with that?
Yeah.
That's how I
Yeah.
think of manifestation.
So let me start with step one as a
Yep.
question. And I don't want to get too in the weeds. I'm not going to ask you to like teach the audience
No,
everything
no, of
you
course.
know about
Ask me.
manifestation. But
And
it's an interesting one because that's something we share in our practices, although I don't coach on manifestation.
yeah,
I coach obviously on
yeah,
anxiety and better work-life balance and more holistic. But the piece about knowing what you want, the
yeah,
setting of a goal
yeah, totally.
is where I sort of start, right? Because that's the framework in which I work from. And a lot of times I'll get clients who have kind of lost everything. They'll
Yeah.
either have lost a job or they'll have lost a relationship or they're kind of at a midlife crisis point. That's a
Yeah.
very common one when they come to me. And they've lost their ability to dream. They've had it. Maybe they've
Totally.
gotten all the things. They've been
Yep.
married, they've got a house, they've got a
Yep.
car, they had a big career or something. And
Totally.
something has happened
Yeah.
that has caused a bump in the road,
Oh
maybe
yeah.
that they created or some other circumstance created. And then they'll get on with me and they're like, I don't know what my goals are.
Yeah.
When somebody comes to you and they're trying to manifest a better future or a better relationship with money or to have money,
Yeah.
but they can't even see a close step or a big step. They can't even
Yep.
see the mansion on the hill, as we refer to
Totally.
it. Where do you start with somebody like that
Yeah.
who's been kicked to the curb by something and has lost their belief?
Oh, and I've seen this. So, I mean, this is common, right? Because it
Yes.
happens and it's real. And the way that I look at it is I just think that there's different seasons that we go through in life. And I
Mm,
don't think every season is meant to be a space where we are envisioning something huge and expansive for ourselves. If we've been kicked to the curb, it might be a season of healing. Like that might be the goal is healing, feeling better, right?
yeah.
Getting yourself to a place where you're more grounded within yourself, maybe just
Yeah.
getting back to, "Oh, I can breathe again," right? Like that might be the goal, and that's totally fine. And that's enough because I believe once we go through that process of healing,
Hmm.
the goal is going to come to you. The idea might
Uh
come
huh.
to you. I just think once we go through the healing process, then it's like, then we can think about what's next
Yeah.
versus trying to force ourselves to think about a future when we're not even believed. We're like, what am I doing with my life? Right. It
Yeah.
can be hard. So I never recommend setting goals out of your mind or out of a should or telling yourself that you have to have some big desire. It's
Yeah.
more like if you just ask yourself, what do I want? What would be amazing? Like if 1 year from now, my
Yes.
life could be different, what might that look like? And I think asking those kind of questions will reveal the answer. I mean, I teach money a lot, and I always tell people, like, sometimes it's better to not have a money goal, right? Like, it's like, ask yourself, is this the time to have a money goal
Yeah.
or not? If you're in burnout, if you've been hustling, if you've been like, maybe just breathe, maybe just decide to make what you've been making, or even let it be a little bit less, totally okay, right? It's like
Yeah.
not like there is better than here. You want to set a goal when you're in a place of having a vision for yourself or when it feels expansive and it does light you up. So
Mhm.
that's kind of the way that I teach it
That's a
and think
really
about it.
good distinction because, like I said, I think that healing season is so
Mhm.
important. And I think
Yeah.
that probably when people come to me, I'm dealing with a lot of healing.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. Totally. And I've
Yeah.
had seasons like that myself.
Hmm.
I mean, usually you'll intuitively know what season am I in. And yeah, I ask myself that question a lot too. Like, what is it that I really need? Yeah.
So, in the money manifestation aspect of your teachings and
Yeah.
your niche, what do you find are the most common money blockers? Because I
Yeah.
think we all kind of have the same
Right.
ones, but
Yeah.
some of us just aren't aware of them. So, what do you
Totally.
see in your practice as very common ones?
Yeah, well, it's going to be money blocks are really just the beliefs that you're carrying around about money or about yourself in regards to money.
Uh huh.
And many of them we take on from like childhood, right? They come
Right.
before we're even like 8 years old, before our conscious mind was even formed. And
Right.
so a lot of times we kind of take on the beliefs that our parents had or what we were taught or told most often.
Yes.
And so, yeah, a lot of
Uh huh.
not thinking it's possible for someone like me. It's like,
Yes.
oh, I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not lucky enough, right? All of these kind of like,
Or
I'm not
or I
enough.
don't or I don't come from money.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
huge.
Or I'm
Totally.
not
And yep,
deserving. Yeah.
yep. And I think another big one is that the people that they've seen around them most often that have money don't look like them.
Uh
So they're
huh.
like, I couldn't possibly be someone who makes money as is. I would have to fit myself into that box to do it.
Uh
And
huh.
that's the kind of stuff that I like to dismantle because it's not true at all, right?
Uh-huh.
Like
Uh-huh.
there is a way in which you can be so you with your unique gifts that you already have, not change a thing, and
Uh-huh.
make the money that you want. But we have to let go of this idea that you have to be someone else or you have to look like this or be like
Yeah.
that because
Yeah.
then you'll never do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Another one that comes up a lot, and again, I don't coach specifically on this. It'll come up as a symptom of something
Yeah.
else. More money, more problems,
Yeah.
right? As much as they want it, they repel it because
Yeah.
they see people with money as having problems or they think they will have problems.
Totally.
And
Yes.
how do you unpack that when
Yeah. I think it's just something to question because as I've looked at my life, problems don't go away, but I think having money like makes it a lot easier to have conveniences in life. So
Mhm.
in many ways, I see that the more money I've made, the less problems I've had because it
Mm,
takes away all of those problems that I have when I couldn't afford things, right? Like
mhm,
important things. So I actually started looking at that like, is that true? Right?
mm,
Like, is that actually true?
mhm,
We have this idea in our mind that it is, but it's like also what's going to be easier when you have more money? What's going to be better when you have more
mhm,
money, right?
mhm,
What's going to be simpler when you have more money? So I started taking on this belief that the more money that I have, the easier it is, right? Like
mhm, mhm, mhm.
and that life is still 50-50. I always think of it like we still have obstacles and problems, but it's not like having more money is giving you more obstacles. It
Mhm,
might be different ones, but then there's also things that are going to be a lot easier.
mhm, mhm. How often do you see somebody who doesn't come from money or didn't think they were capable of earning their own
Yeah.
money? Then they start to earn money and then they either waste it, burn it, or gamble it away.
Well, the people that I work with are usually, I mean, we see this in the world a lot. I mean, you see
Yes.
it with lottery winners, right? It's
Uh-huh.
like someone
Talk
thinks, oh,
about that
that's
because
going to
not everybody knows that statistic. It's a phenomenal statistic.
Yes, it's like I think it's around like 80% of lottery winners end up losing all of their money plus some within like 3 years, which
Correct.
is wild. And this isn't just winning $1,000. This is the people who are winning like multiple millions of dollars. And I
Mhm.
always say like it really does show that you have a energetic set point of what you're available for, of what you feel comfortable with, right? It's
Yeah.
like because that show you see people make money and they're not available for it.
Yeah.
So I see that out in the world with that, but I don't see it within my clients because they're working with me. So we catch that stuff before it happens. And
I
I
see.
work with people kind of long term. Like that's why actually I always say like my program is actually a whole year and some people even do a second year because we go through the whole evolution. We go through the phase of like actually learning how to create money and believing that you can make money. And then once they start making money, there's a whole new set of stuff we need to work on, especially for people who didn't come from it because they don't really know how to be with it. So we work
Mm.
on that and the mindset that's coming up and the part of them that doesn't think they're responsible or doesn't,
Yes.
know how to hold on to it and wants to just
Yes.
get rid of it right away. So we
Yes.
work through it as we go. And that's why I like, especially around money, working with people a little bit more long term because I do find that there's phases of different
Yeah.
things we need to work on.
Yeah. I've had several clients who have been very good at earning money. They're good workers, they're talented in their
Yeah.
fields. And they talk about when they lose a job or a
Yeah.
gig or a career, how money, there is no money. And I'll say,
Yeah.
where did it go?
Yeah.
Because they've earned a lot over their lifetime. And they'll say, I don't know.
Yeah.
So there's like no accountability to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just kind of presumed it flowed in and then they let it flow out, which
Yeah.
is nothing wrong with that,
Totally.
except it was done unconsciously,
Yeah.
and without any kind of respect or awareness. And they admit that that was because they never felt deserving of it.
Yes. Yes.
It's a really interesting discovery.
Isn't it wild? Yes,
Mhm.
100%. Or just don't feel comfortable with it or think people won't like them if they have it, right? If we hold
Yes.
these beliefs, it's wild because you can make all the money, but yeah, you can't hold on to it. So that's a whole nother piece of like money manifestation or money mindset work. that makes all the difference.
Yeah. A lot of times I've had it when I've said, what happens when you make a lot of money? And when I say a
Mhm.
lot of money, I'm talking about a good living. I'm not talking about,
Yeah,
tens of millions of dollars, but I'm talking
totally.
about like a really good living. And they'll say, as they start to unpack it, there was guilt or shame around out earning their parent,
Yeah, yeah,
that they felt somehow, even though money was scarce growing up and they hated it, they were nervous that their parent would somehow not love them
yep.
or reject them or be jealous of them or resentful of them. And so then if they were bad with money, meaning spent it all, gave it all
Yes,
away, that then their parents couldn't be resentful of how much they made.
I know.
But it's all unconscious. It's
Oh,
not
it
a conscious.
totally, and we're like, yeah, and that and then it's just confusing because when you're not aware of what's going on like that, and that's why
Mhm.
that's the power of hiring a coach, right? And having
Right.
somebody help observe these things and look at
Yes.
what's going on deep down.
Yeah.
Because if you don't heal that, then it just feels like, God, what's wrong? Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't
Yes.
I stop this? Why is this a pattern? It makes no sense. And, it just feels like constant sabotage or something.
Well, and the other component of it, I believe, is inherited trauma. So I think
Hmm.
what happens is if the parent or the grandparent is such where money was scarce or lost due
Yeah.
to circumstances beyond their control or otherwise, then they believe that that's the curse of their family. And
Yeah.
so they perpetuate the curse by not
Totally.
addressing the fact that they didn't inherit the trauma. They inherited the thoughts,
Yeah.
but it's not a thing.
Yeah.
It's not a disease,
It's
and
true.
you can change it.
Yep. Can change the way that you're thinking. Yeah.
The other thing, and tell me if this is something you see in your practice, because again, we're dealing with manifestation, and manifestation comes in lots of things. People, it might be money, it might be careers, it might be a new place to live, like you
Yeah.
wanted to live in Los Angeles, it might be a healthier life. But a lot of times, manifestation is around love. People will come
Mm,
and say, I want to find a partner. It might be a spouse. Sometimes people don't use the word spouse, they
yeah.
just say a partner. And what's so interesting is I often see that same core belief. They're not tied to money, but it's
Yeah.
tied to self worth.
Yeah.
And so when people aren't finding the right partner or even somebody to go out with, it's because they don't think they're deserving.
Yeah.
Do you see that in your practice as well?
Well, I don't work with that specifically, but I do think it's like pretty much all the same no matter what we're manifesting. Because my clients, once they learn manifestation, they end up applying it to all different things. Like I
Right.
had a client reach out to me, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant right recently,
Yeah.
and like all these different things because they apply the same things
Hmm.
to it. But I think it's so true because it's like when we're going after something from a place of not enough, not deserving, like we're thinking that thing is going to make me whole, right? Whether
Yeah.
that's money or success or a relationship, when we're
Hmm.
approaching it from
Hmm.
once I have that, it's going to make me whole. We get really attached to that thing. It feels really important to have it, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then we just go about it in all the wrong ways and it feels terrible as we're approaching that thing, right?
Hmm.
And the
Hmm.
misconception is that that thing can make you whole. So when we're looking for something to make us whole, it's never going to work. It's never, right? And
Right.
so
Right.
it's like that, like you said, you have to heal that first. The part of
Yeah.
you, if you're attached to something, you have to look at why. Usually it is because you think it's going to make something better in your life, or it's going to make you feel whole. It's going to make you feel X, Y, or Z. And so I always work with clients on looking at why they're attached and really releasing attachment to it, coming into a place of wholeness within themselves. And what
Yes.
I find is it's wild. Like my clients, when they have that shift,
Yeah.
bam, it happens.
Yeah.
Like the thing just happens.
Yeah.
It's that internal work that shifts things.
And that's what creates the manifestation.
Totally. Totally. It's like you are just on a different energetic level then, right? You attract someone completely different where you're like, "Oh, like this is a completely different experience and this is what I wanted, but it feels so different than I thought it would."
Yeah.
In a good way though.
Yeah. I think otherwise what happens is people just keep repeating the same mistakes. So back to
Yes.
the lottery winner,
Yep.
they win the lottery, which is unbelievable, and then the money is gone in 3
Yep.
years.
I
And it's
know.
because they haven't done the work of deserving or believing or
Yeah.
whatever. And so then the money just goes. And I
Yeah.
think that's what happens with relationships. So I think people do find sometimes the right partner
Yeah.
and they sabotage it because they don't think they deserve it.
Yeah.
Or they never find the right partner because they keep choosing the wrong partners.
Yes.
And not that, there's a formula because there
Yep.
isn't, but they keep choosing the wrong partners because they think that's all they deserve.
Yeah. I had a teacher tell me once, if you see something happening more than like 3 times and it feels like the same situation,
Yeah.
right? Like if it's happening in patterns, it may be something to look at within, right? Like,
Yeah.
especially if
Yeah.
it feels not to blame yourself, but that's the most empowering approach you can take. That's where you can actually take agency and say, wait, I seem to keep attracting the same person, different face.
Yeah.
What's going on here? Like, what's going on with me that this keeps happening? And that's where it can be helpful to explore with someone like
Yeah.
you, right? And have a neutral observer help pull out what's going on.
Well, yeah. Ask the right questions.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because
totally.
we don't have the answers.
Mhm,
That's not what coaching is. Coaching isn't about
totally.
the answers. It's about asking the questions
Yeah,
and
exactly.
discovering the answers together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So tell me or tell our audience how the different ways people can work with you. I know you have a big retreat coming up very soon
Yep.
and it'll still be open to apply by the time
Yeah,
this airs.
totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
So talk about your retreat and then talk about your programs.
Yeah, so I have the Abundance Retreat, which is coming up in September 20th and 21st, and it's going to be amazing. It's my third retreat. Everyone so far has been incredibly magical and transformational. I started doing retreats and I started seeing the power of it. I feel like when
Mhm.
you get into a retreat, it's like going into a different kind of vortex where I feel like it speeds things
Yes.
up, right?
Yes.
Like the
Agreed.
transformation happens fast. So my clients have loved these retreats and I'm doing one September. This one, the focus is all around abundance and healing your relationship with money, expanding into more abundance. It's around 20 people, so it's
Uh-huh.
enough to where you'll meet amazing people, but I really like to be very hands-on and be able to work with everyone.
And is this one is in San Diego,
San
yes?
Diego. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And is it women only?
It's not necessarily, but I do attract. So far, everyone that's coming is women. Every
Yeah.
retreat I've had is women. But if
Yeah.
a man wanted in, he totally could. Like I have a
Yeah.
couple men in my program too.
And is it entrepreneurs? Is that the
Specifically, yep,
predominantly?
yep,
Mhm.
for
So small
entrepreneurs.
business owners,
Yeah,
entrepreneurs, all the
yep.
things. Okay. What's your other programs?
Yeah, so I have a program called the Money Manifestation Movement, which is the 1 year program that I was talking about. And it's helping entrepreneurs just up level their money mindset, up level
Mhm.
their relationship with money, heal any of those patterns, wounds, kind of release any of the blocks that might have gotten in the way to help you gain awareness around that and release it and let it go. So, yeah, that's my other program and it's amazing. I've been running that for a little over 2 years and I love the people in there. It's a great fantastic program. It's been amazing to see the growth of everyone. And it's a group program. I love working with groups. I mean, I've had so many of my clients who have never even gotten coached by me, but they've watched either the replays of the group calls or come to the group calls and just watch and seeing other people get coached and it's like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like it releases so much shame. Like, oh, they think like that too. Oh, they
Yeah.
had that come up. And you can
Yeah.
really get coaching just through watching the coaching.
Yes.
So I think it's really healing doing it in that context. It can be.
That's great.
Yeah.
Though they're lucky to have you because you're such a positive energy and you're so optimistic. And I love like every time we get to sit down together, whether it's on the
So
phone or on Zoom or in person, I just feel this warm energy and this place of compassion. And it's just amazing. So your clients are so lucky to have
oh,
you
thank you,
guide them.
Jackie. Oh,
Yeah.
you too. I feel like every time we get together, we could just talk forever.
It's true.
I
It's
love it.
totally true.
I know.
Such a kinship, which is so
Totally.
amazing that two ships would sort of pass through the night on a purchase of a house and that
Yeah,
we would be reunited years later in the same field. It's
I
just
know.
wild.
On
I
the
love
same
it.
island.
On the same island. Yes. Yes.
It's amazing.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
grateful.
Well, Jamie, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time and talking to my audience today about manifestation and money and coaching and all the good things. And I just love seeing you and I appreciate it so much.
I'm so grateful. Thank you for having me.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.